All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listener. Good afternoon, Steve. Finally, we made it. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C. From the studios in Fairfax City. We're very humble and grateful that Steve Joliffe accepted our invitation to our show. Steve, welcome to the show, man.
Good to be here.
So, Steve,
finally. For all that hassle.
That's right. Steve, so, man, last year, well, the last 15 months have been weird, you know, with the pandemic. Some people believe in the vaccine, some people don't believe. The musicians, they cannot do or go out that much. How it is? How are you holding up? How it is affecting your sanity, your family, whatever, man?
Well, like we said before, I live in the middle of nowhere, and my life is a bit like a monk's life, really. So it's been like that for a long time. So it doesn't really affect me that much. Apart from going out shopping once a week, I never really see anybody very much anyway. It's very much a matter of playing every day, composing and sight reading and a bit of painting, and that's it every day, really. Talking to the cat, of course.
Yeah. Do other musicians visit you where you live, or?
Not really.
Not really? Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm sure you understand. It's like friends are sort of all over the world, you know, so they're miles and miles away. But no, I don't see many people.
Yeah. Wow, man. Were you born like in a musical family? How old were you when you started playing a flute or saxophone or any instrument by that matter?
No, not really. My father did play the piano, and my mother was keen on music. And my mother's sister was very talented. But I think we all picked it up just through necessity, really, just through necessity to express our feelings. We had a pretty rough childhood, and I think it was a way of expressing how we felt, really.
So would you say that music was kind of escape from the reality, if you will? Or?
An escape. I mean, all entertainment, I suppose, is an escape, but a necessity to express yourself, you know, to find a medium to express yourself. That's why I started with painting. You know, that was my first direction. And it was at art school that I started to improvise on the piano. And it grew from there, really.
Gotcha. Feel free to elaborate on when you met, Rick Davies. That
was literally when I first left art school, which was about 65 or 64. And I need to get this right. Now, what happened? Oh, I think it was an advert I found in the Melody Maker, and they were advertising for a sax player. And I went to the interview, which was just, you know, it was about a dozen sax players all queued up there waiting to play that bit. And I played for Rick and another guy that had turned down Jimi Hendrix to play the drums, and had no thought that I'd be accepted at all. But, you know, I was up for anything, to try anything, to see what happened. Yeah. And they said, yeah, you got the job.
Wow.
The next day, I mean, I couldn't play anything. I couldn't read music. I mean, I've been teaching myself to sight read lately, but I'm completely self-taught. Apart from, I went to Berlin to study composition, and was the first person ever accepted there that couldn't read music. But and that's where I came to meet Edgar and all that stuff. But yeah, so that's how I started with Rick, and we flew off. We caught a train to Switzerland, and they had a little residency in a bar, and they were all living in a flat opposite the bar. So we had no money, nothing to eat, and you know, it was pretty hard times. But you know, and then at that time I was a teenager, I guess, or just over, and nothing seemed to matter. It was just you know, finding your way through and believing that it would all all come good.
Yeah. And then that was what's the name of the band they called Joint, I believe, right?
It's called The Joint, yeah. Rick speaks about it in his autobiography, actually, because when we split up and I went off to Germany, he went back to England and put together more ideas with some other people, and that's how Supertramp came about. So, I mean, if I'd stuck with him, obviously I'd have carried on with the Supertramp thing, but I decided that I was going to go and study music.
Yeah. So you went from UK to study music at Germany. How you got accepted?
Well, we were making a film in Switzerland,
Oh.
and at the end of the film, the composer for the film said to me, you know, what do you want to do now? And I said, well, you know, I just want to learn to play Bach. You know, I'm just so astounded by what the sounds he makes. And he said, well, okay, here's the key to my flat. I live in the center of Berlin. Just go to Berlin and I'll see if I can get you an appointment with the Hochschule or the Conservatorium. So that's what I did. Madness. Yeah, you know, getting on a train and guards coming in with guns, you know, because the wall was up then. So you had to cross, you know, through into Berlin. Berlin was all cut off. So it was pretty strange. And I couldn't speak a word of German. So I just managed to find this flat. And in the flats in Germany, they have these people that look after all the flats and make sure everything's clean and tidy. And she was a little old lady and she couldn't speak English, but she sort of showed me into his flat. And in his flat, he had this great big Steinway Grand, and you know, he was obviously doing well out of the film music. And I just set to, you know, same as I'm doing now, really, improvising away on the piano.
Yeah, my God, man! And then you end up forming what? You joined the blues rock band. It was called Steamhammer in between '79 and '70, right?
Well, that was after I'd met Edgar.
Okay.
I was still studying composition in Berlin at the Conservatorium, and I met Edgar at a studio there, and he was a lost end, and I'm wondering what to do. And I said, well, let's start a three-piece. You know, I always had this thing about three pieces, the triangle and all that, and improvisation has always been my thing. So he was a bit shocked. He said, you know, we can't have a band without a bass player. I said, yeah, we can. We'll do something different. And we just basically got a couple of echo chambers and just made a load of noises, really. I thought, well, it's never going to make any money. It's never going to be taken on by a record company, that's for sure. And we advertised for different drummers. We had different drummers come along, and Klaus was one of the people that came along to one of the interviews. And I'm not sure, I think maybe Edgar had known him before from somewhere, but he was quite keen to have him in to complete the three-piece. I wasn't really sure. He was quite young. He's a bit younger than me, Klaus. And, but, you know, he was very good, very fast, quite unusual. So he ended up being the third part of TD.
And then, wow.
We travelled all over Germany, you know, all these little clubs. Amazing stuff going on at that time. And it was, you know, I had so much hustle in Germany with people shaking their fists at me because I had long hair and a beard and everything, you know. And the Germans were still not long after the war, really, and they still had that mentality. And they were stopping you getting on the underground and shouting Studenten at you, you know. And I just had enough, you know. I just wanted to get away. And I said to Edgar, look, I've just got to go home for a bit. So we had one last gig in Wiesbaden where I expect you heard the story where all the gear fell off the top of the car because we couldn't afford a van. We just had an estate car with stuff tied on the top, and the whole roof rack fell off. And it was when Klaus was going off to go to the toilet at the side of the motorway, he came back running with a white face saying, "There's nothing on the roof." I said, "No, everything I own is on the roof," you know. And I remember Edgar was rolling a joint in the front, you know, and his joint went everywhere. And I jumped out of the car thinking, please make this a joke. But there was nothing, not a sign of anything. And eventually we found it on the motorway, you know, everything flattened, you know, my new Mark 6, which I'd managed to buy, you know. I thought, if I'm going to get an instrument, I want the best. I mean, it'd be worth, I don't know, 30 or 40 grand now. And it was just flattened. You know, it's just a piece of pancake. A lorry had just come along and run over everything, you know. But we got to Wiesbaden, and because we've been jamming in the car with the flute and the acoustic guitar, we did the gig in Wiesbaden with just the acoustic guitar and the flute. Very stoned. I seem to remember it being quite a good gig. And then after that, I just came home.
My God, man.
You know, I went back to the UK, and then Edgar phoned me about 3 or 4 weeks later and said, "Look, I think we've got a deal now. You know, they'd got some deal with a record company in Germany. Come back, you know." And I said, "No, I don't. I'm not sure." I said, "You know, we need a bit more support." And at the meantime, I put an advert in the Melody Maker saying, you know, oh no, low battery.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can plug this in. Hold on a sec.
Yeah. Take your time and plug it in.
Yes. Battery now.
Right. So, but let's go to, so how you end up meeting Edgar? I mean, how you end up going to a studio? How you know that he was there?
Well, you know, I was always listening out for what was going on. Somebody must have told me, or somebody must have mentioned it, or I'd seen it in the paper or something or other, that they were doing electronic music in this studio.
Yeah. And
I'd always been interested in electronic music. Of course, that was in '96, mid-'60s, so there was no synthesizers as such. But it still interested me. So I thought, well, I'll go there and see what's going on. And there was a guy there doing electronic music with tapes, you know, like Music Concrete. So he's running these tapes at different speeds and, you know, it's turning them backwards and stuff like that. And Edgar was there in the studio.
Wow. Just
hanging out, basically, you know, and wondering what he's going to do next. And little did he know, his opportunity was about to arrive.
And so you got tired of living in England and so in the Germany, and I read somewhere that you didn't like the food that much, you know, because you're a vegetarian and people. You know.
I'm a very, very strong vegetarian. I cannot understand why people want to kill animals. It just doesn't equate in my thinking at all. It's madness. It's barbaric, it's insensitive, and it's completely unnecessary. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to get me on that one. Yeah. I just love animals, you know. Here's one here, look, Poppers.
Yeah.
There's somebody there in America, Pop Chops. Yeah, over there, look. Eh? Yeah. Who's that? Now, why would you want to kill her?
That's right. No, I understand.
You know, and what's the difference between her and any other animal? You know, they all think, they all see, they all hear, they have fears and gladness, and, you know, they have families. You know, why kill them? It's mad.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. So you went back to England and then, so you thought about, you know, what I'm doing next, and then so Edgar,
like I said,
email, you know, sending you letters
in the paper,
right? Yeah,
and this band phoned up. I put in an advert saying multi-instrumentalist because, you know, I've always played loads of things. I get a kick out of learning new instruments, so at that time I was playing keyboards and lots of different types of woodwind, and apart from singing and stuff like that. And they phoned and said, oh, they wanted somebody to pick up what they were doing. They'd signed a deal with CBS and they'd had one album out, which was a good album, actually. So I went and had a rehearsal with them and they offered me the job. And, you know, basically, I thought I'd take this job to save me having to go back to Germany. But it turned out they were more popular in Germany than England. So we went straight back to Germany. So that didn't work.
Oh, my God, man.
You know, we were playing every night, you know, late 60s, early 70s. You know, it was non-stop in them days. You'd be playing one night in England and the next day in Germany or France. We had a #1 in France, which I wrote with the singer.
Wow.
And we never flew anywhere. It was, you know, in the van all the time, you know.
Were you guys getting paid enough to survive?
Sorry?
Were you guys getting paid enough money?
Well, I always had a wad of pound notes in my pocket. I never had a bank account. So I guess I had enough money to buy bread and cheese now and again, but I never got any royalties. A #1 in France and no royalties. I don't know where the money went.
Yeah.
Somebody got it, but I didn't. No, I never got any royalties at all.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, they've just re-released Steam Hammer, that same album I did 50 odd years ago. They've re-released on a label called Repertoire, who's a company that, you know, pick up stuff from years ago. And it's doing quite well. And they're paying me royalties at last. So not very much, but at least it's okay now.
Gotcha. So now Edgar Froese found out you're still living in Germany. And what you keep trying to bring you back to with Klaus Schulze to the formation of Tangerine Dream, right?
Yeah, he wanted me to come back to do stuff with this record company that he'd managed to find.
Yeah.
But like I say, I decided I'd had enough of Germany, so I joined Steam Hammer.
Yeah. My God, and then feel free. So you were touring with at the time when you were with Tangerine Dream and with Klaus Schulze, and in 1978 you to work on the album called Cyclone, which is a very good album. And now I understand your email address, the TD78.
Yeah. I thought I'd try and make it simple, and for people that still follow that album, it's sort of
it's a very good album, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it worked. You know, at the time, like with most albums at that time, I used to be a bit despondent when we'd finished and thought it wasn't quite right. But, you know, after a year or two, you look back and you think, oh, it wasn't that bad. And I mean, that album developed from lots of ideas. You know, I just kept trying ideas. You know, I was really the mainstay behind that, because a lot of the thinking for Edgar and Christoph, they were a bit pissed off with what was going on and left me to it a lot of the time. So I did tend to take over a bit on it, but which probably upset people a bit. I didn't mean to particularly push towards the vocals. It was just one of the ideas. And Edgar said, oh, yeah, I quite like it. Let's keep it, you know. So we did. That
was the first time I think Tangerine Dream have used vocal and lyrics, right? It was kind of revolutionary.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's weird because I think it sort of worked because the vocals are all improvised, you know. I mean, I write lyrics the same way as I write music, and I just write what comes straight into my head as though I'm sort of copying it from some other worldly power. And so it comes out pretty nuts, but it sort of works for an instrumental band, I think.
Yeah, no. I really like. I know there is. I read somewhere some criticism on the internet about, you know, Tangerine Dream being known for electronic music and vocals. And anyways, I don't care what everybody else think of that. it's a very good album. I really like it, man. And it was,
Oh, I'm glad you do.
you know, you
It's
listen
nice to know.
lyrics and the music, and I like it. I don't care what everybody else think. Or, I mean, either I like
Yeah,
it or I don't.
oh, you know, you can't please everybody, and
Yeah, of
everybody's
course,
on their own trip, aren't they? You know, like I've always said, listening's an art form, you know, and the listener's looking for their direction, the same as the musician is, and I quite respect all that, you know. So it doesn't concern me if somebody doesn't like it.
No, of course not. So after that, you know, after Tangerine Dream and Steam Hammer, you end up playing with other people's in between side projects, right? Between, I don't know, 78 and 83, I think, right?
I was trying all sorts of things, you know. I'd formed a couple of bands and, you know, tried lots of different ideas, but nothing really. I think it was basically I was destined to write solo stuff. You know, I think that was the only thing that was going to please me. And I sort of understand that now. And over the last 40, 50 years, I've just developed that style of composition that expresses what I feel. And that's what gives me satisfaction.
Yeah, and then in 83, you released your first solo album. I think it's called Journey Out of the Body,
A bit
right?
before that, actually, it was almost the same year as I left TD. Just after 78, I released Journeys Out of the Body, which basically I wrote during an experience I'd had with astral travel. And I just writing this stuff, you know, out of my head and thinking, well, nobody's ever going to release it, you know. I'd already tried to get a deal with Virgin, and Richard was very keen, you know. He said, oh, put him in the studio and all that. But his cousin, Richard Draper, I think, no, Simon Draper, was very, very difficult to deal with. And I ended up just giving up on it. But then I started doing this Journeys Out of the Body, which was basically just all done with a Pro One, you know, which is a little monophonic synthesizer and a Revox tape recorder, 4-track little TIAC, and an acoustic piano, little upright piano. And I was just about to shelve it, and a friend of mine said, oh, you should send it to this company, they're into, you know, weird stuff. And I said, oh, well, okay, I'll just try one company, send it off. And they sort of, about a month later, they wrote back and said, I packed up your tape to send back to you because I just couldn't make any head or tail of it. And then I thought, well, I'll open it. And he opened the package and listened to it again and completely changed his mind and said, no, I want to release it. So that's how it came out. And he said, have you got anything to go with it? You know, and I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, it's some writing or something. I said, well, I've kept a diary of the astral experiences. He said, great, write all that down. We'll put that in with it. So it's got a diary in with it of, you know, all the experiences I was having at the time that I was writing the music.
Yeah.
And that set me off. And, you know, they wanted another one, which I did, Japanese Butterfly. And after that, I just kept going. It was one every year, you know, still it's about 50 now. So.
My God, man. Yeah. You always like, Steve, do more solo work than being in a band? You prefer to be like a
I can't quite hear you. I have to speak up, Claudio.
No, yeah. Do you always wanted to be on your own, like having your own group?
Not particularly. I loved, you know, like with Steam Hammer, it was an amazing band. You know, I just loved playing with them. The excitement on stage was fantastic. You know, it was blues based and very powerful. So I did enjoy that, and I just enjoy it. I love music, so I enjoy playing with anybody that's, you know, doing something that's interesting. But I think the trouble is I have very specific ideas emotionally that I want to express. It's only really ever going to work by concentrating on my solo stuff. Right. You know, I'm always open-minded to try other things, but, you know, as you get older, it's sort of like, it's become ingrained now. I just, I enjoy it. It's a discovery. You know, it's like a diary. I always say my music's like a diary of my life. And every year I'm looking at a different direction and discovering new ideas. And of course, with equipment, I've always loved the tech in gear, you know, and getting new stuff, which is what I'm doing now with this audio modeling things with a company called Swam. And that will be the next album that's going to be very much dominated by the audio modeling instruments, which the last album, I forget the names of the bloody albums, there's so many of them. Sent and Returned or something, I think it's called. Lost and Returned, that's right.
Yeah.
I started using stuff from Spitfire with the MIDI wind instruments. So that sort of was the beginning of it, really. But this company that's called Audio Modeling that does this Swam stuff, it's just mind-blowing. It's so much like the real thing. It's incredible. So no samples, you know. It's all done with algorithms.
Yeah. So after,
but I find all that stuff interesting. You know, I find discovering new things fun.
It is important to you to keep on working on your own and try to do things your own and express yourself, find your way. And
you'll have to speak up as clearly as you can because I've got rain coming down on the roof.
Yeah, no, that I'm saying that you enjoy more exploring your own ideas that come to your head and keep on working on your own instead of perhaps going to a band. You will get, I don't know, you will like it for a while, but after a while you say, no, I don't like the direction where the band is going and I want to do my own thing. And that's what
well, it's a different thing, isn't it? With a band, you know, you've got a lot of other people to considerate, right. And they are, you know, they've all got their own ideas, and that's what makes a good band, because they all come together and it all joins up and comes out as something
right. Yeah.
total from everybody. But you know, then you've got all the politics of getting people together and the traveling and the, you know, so in the end I don't get out as many ideas as I'd like to. And working on my own, I can really get deep and concentrate on something. I think about things a lot, you know. At night I sort of lie awake and I enjoy thinking and working out directions and problems, if you'd like to call them that. I enjoy the whole direction of it. It's not much different to somebody writing a book, really. It's the same sort of thing. On doing a painting, you just get into a discovery of a new idea that you've had, and it's fun. You know, I enjoy it. It's still enjoy it after 50 or 60 years.
Sure.
You know, so it's obviously with me till the end.
Yeah, absolutely right. So if you haven't stayed with Rick Davies, you would have joined Supertramp, and then your life would have gone into completely different directions, right? So
it would have been completely different, the same as it would have been completely different if I'd stayed with Tangerine Dream. Yeah. And I often think about that because, you know, it was disappointing for me that we didn't carry on, because I think we started something new.
Yeah.
And we should have developed it. So I found that a disappointment. But then again, if I hadn't have left, I wouldn't have concentrated on my own direction. I just wouldn't have had the opportunity to be that selfish, you know.
Sure. But by the way, I heard that Klaus Schulze is not doing that well. You know, physically.
No, I've heard that. I think he's got kidney problems, isn't he? I think he's on a dialysis.
Yeah, he's on a dialysis.
You know, I went to visit him a while back, and we did some music together.
No, I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, we did an album called Meditation.
Yeah.
Which I did at his house in Hamburg.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry to hear that. I've always liked Klaus. He's a real gent.
Yeah.
I wish him well.
Yeah, I'm in touch with other people, and I wanted to interview him from the show, and it's not possible either. You know, he's not doing any interviews at all. You know, video or audio or written, nothing. So, yeah, he's going to dialysis, so it's tough.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I like the stuff. And then I was listening last night to some of your records, right? The one from Beyond the Dream from 1984.
Yep.
And that's a very good album, man. How the stuff
like that. Yeah. Yeah, it was sort of my last attempt at combining vocals with instrumental, you know. Not to say that I won't do it again, but I've never found it necessary so far. Yeah, I think it worked pretty well, Beyond the Dream.
Yeah. And then were you that at the time were you selling, you know, you were not touring that much, but were you selling enough record to make a decent living or?
No, I've never really made any money out of music. Most people think I have because I live in a nice house, but no, it's been, the trouble is I've been too much into the idea of creating and not thinking about business. That's the difference between me and Edgar. Edgar was a very good businessman, and he made sure he got all that together, which I praised him for. He did very well. But I've never been good at the business side, and I found it very difficult getting record companies interested in what I do, especially in this country, because they're all into vocals. And if you come along with an instrumental thing, they just don't know what to do with it. And I can't sell out and write music to suit other people. I have to write what I feel, and that ends up not making any money, I'm afraid. But lots of rewards in other ways. That's
right. Another great album is called Sansi for 1996.
Yeah, that was quite a change again, wasn't it? I mean, I find that every album is very different. You know, of course, it's every year, a different year, different things have happened, and different discoveries come on the scene, and different instruments as well, different synthesizers. Yeah, Zanzi was quite different, quite rhythmic, wasn't it?
Yeah. And you work now, living on your own. You try to kind of work, go to the studio like every day. I mean, you don't.
Every day consists of composing, sight reading. I sight read Bach every day because I just get such a kick out of that, and painting, you know, but mostly composition. That's the main thing. Pretty much every day, if I'm not composing something, I'm thinking about composing something or thinking about the instruments to compose something for. It's a way of life, you know, complete way of life.
And the painting you keep for yourself, or they go to a studio, you sell the painting, or no, just for your own?
Yeah, the painting's just for myself. Sometimes I bring out little painting books, which I try to convince the listeners to buy, but there are not many of them are that interested in it, you know, which is fair enough. They're interested in what I write musically rather than what I paint. So I don't make any money out of it, but I don't really make much money out of the music either. I mean, I've got a list of people that buy from me every year, which is great, you know, and I love them to bits, you know, because they write me lovely emails about how they feel about it, and they look forward to the new album. And, you know, it's quite a nice sort of cottage industry, as we call it. Whereas I just finish an album, I let everybody know, and most of them tend to buy it.
Yeah. So you do, gotcha. So
but you couldn't live off that. You couldn't live off it.
But what about you? Do you make any money from Bandcamp or Spotify? No, not really.
From what?
Bandcamp. You have your stuff listed on Bandcamp?
No, I don't have anything to do with any of that stuff, really. Somebody in America put some stuff on one of those things, but I never have anything to do with it. The same as Spotify, you know, they send me things, a long list of piles and piles of stuff that people have played. And then at the end of it, they've got like threepence halfpenny, they're going to pay me, So I never put anything on Spotify. I don't even bother to register things with PRS anymore. It's all a complete, it's just my world. And hopefully there'll be a few people out there that'd like to hear what I've got to say. And that's how it'll be. And when I finally go to the next life, there'll be enough people left over that are spreading the word. That's my only hope, really.
Well, that's what, in many ways, the radios, Steve, I never mentioned in the beginning, but all my radios are free. They're always going to be free. I don't have any advertising.
Yeah,
no social media, 24 hours a day, transmitting the best music. And I have about, 4 floors full of music, 5,000 CDs, about 3,000 vinyl, and a lot more. So for me, the reason that I'm doing these interviews, and unfortunately, I never had the chance to talk to Edgar Froese or Klaus Schulze, but I'm doing the interview for the next generation. I want to keep a history of all these great musicians. So somebody in 30 years from now will say, who is this Steve guy? Who is Tangerine Dream or Manuel Goshin or Klaus Schulze or whatever,
Well, good for you. What you're doing is very necessary, and that's what's going to keep it all going.
Yeah, for the next generation.
People like me, there's many others, that just do it for the enjoyment and because they love what they do. And
Absolutely, right.
Maybe that's the way it should be.
That's the way. What kind of music are you listening to? Other people's music nowadays?
No, very, very rarely.
Really?
Because my life is so full of writing music, I very rarely listen to anything. And I'm very particular, obviously. That's why I write music, because I can't find anything to listen to that sort of answers my pathway. Have always been a huge fan of J.S. Bach. I just feel that what he does is so incredible. It's almost like it's been gifted to him, or he's made touch with some other worldly power. Because it's just, and that's why I'm keep sight reading him every day, because just to pick up, I've got a whole pile of Bach, which I just go through and get to the end and turn over and start again. So I never get to know it. So but sight reading it, you just follow what he's doing, and it's so inspiring and exciting. It doesn't influence my own music. It's just something that I really get a kick out of. I'm not trying to be like Bach, that's for sure. I love individuals. I love to see people following their own direction and discovering things for themselves and expressing their own emotions. And that's exactly what he was doing, and he did it so well. I get a kick out of that. But for myself, I'm expressing another direction, my own feelings, my own emotions, whatever they are, and trying to make contact with whatever's out there, if there is anything, or whether it's just come from my own brain, I don't know. I'm not a total atheist, but I sit on the fence, really.
Really? Do you think it's life out there somewhere in the world?
It wouldn't make sense if there wasn't, but then again, we're not going to know until we die, are we?
Yeah.
So I have to keep an open mind. I don't want to believe in something that will make me feel better and more comfortable. So, if I go to church every day and pray that, I'm going to be saved, I'm going to feel more comfortable. I can't do that. If there's something out there, I'd love to know about it. And I respect people that believe there is something, and, in different religions. I'm not poo-pooing them in any way, but for me, I have to know for sure that it was real, and nothing's proved that to me apart from what Bach expresses in his music. That's the only thing that's made me think, yes, it could be something else.
Yeah, got you.
Because it's not possible to write something like that, as far as I'm concerned, without being in contact with something, some higher power.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Do you miss now that you, for many years now, you've been living on your own, and you know, in the place in England where you are? Do you miss touring and playing live for other people, or doesn't you
Yes,
can
I've
live
always
without it?
loved. I always loved playing live. You know, I got an excitement of it, and it wasn't. It wasn't just to be seen, and you know, the praise and all that. Although obviously I enjoyed that. I just love making contact with people. You know, and I do miss that. Yeah, and I think about that regularly, about doing more concerts. Again, it's very difficult because you need a promoter to really organise it. I can't really do that. I can organise a gig, I could probably book the hall, but then you've got to promote it somehow, and you know, that's beyond me really. So anything that turns up, I grab with two hands and go and do it. You know, which I did a few things in Poland recently with a good friend who lives over there. I've done a couple of things in America. So if anything turns up, I'll do it, but no ideas yet. You know, I'd like to do something with these MIDI wind instruments just to show people how they work, you know, maybe do some videos or something of them.
Yeah.
And because they're quite stunning.
Yeah. Well, you are always welcome to, if you come here to the United States, you can always stay. I own a big house, so you can always stay here. I live
Oh,
close
thank
to
you,
Washington, DC.
Claudio. I'll keep that in mind. I've got other friends in Washington, as it happens. And
Really?
well, an old girlfriend who was 15 when I first started going out with her, and we've always stayed in touch. And she's now an art sort of agent, so she's trying to organise an exhibition for me in Washington. So you never know, I might end up there. If I do, I'll make sure I contact you.
Yeah, if I'm going to London, man, I will definitely end up, visiting.
Well, you know, you're welcome. You just call me and you come and stay. You'll love it here. It's
Thank you very much.
a really amazing place. The
Yeah.
deer wander through the garden, and you know, it's full of wildlife. And
I got you. Are you still in touch with like other musicians, the people that you have played, you know, people from Tangerine Dream, or you know, Chris Frankie, or
no, I never, you know, I mean, there's only Christoph left, isn't there?
yeah, Chris, yeah.
It doesn't sound like Klaus is going to be very talkable.
No.
And Christoph, you know, I don't think I ever had a conversation with him. I can't remember ever, you know, even though we worked together all that time, I can't remember sitting down with him and having a conversation.
Or going for a beer or go coffee, nothing?
Wow. No, never. No, never.
Yeah. Wow,
never.
Strange.
Yeah. I mean, I like Christoph, and I respect his work. He's done some good stuff, you know, and I think he was a very big part of TD making it. You know, he was one of the first to do that whole sequence of thing, and he does it very well. He's a real techo, and he comes at it from a mathematical way, and I have a great respect for him, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised that, you know, all the kind of electronic music people are kind of quiet in general. I don't know why, but Klaus Schulze is more talkative, you know, it's different.
Is more what?
Talkative. He's more extrovert. He likes to talk more.
Yes, he is. He is.
So
he's quite, I guess that's why we get on, really. Yeah, I've had some great conversations with Klaus. Yeah, that's very different. Yeah, I like Klaus. Well, as I say, I like Christoph, but we just didn't seem to hit it off. You know, maybe he didn't like me for some reason.
Because you were English, you were not German. I don't know.
Possibly.
Well, you were
into that one.
Yeah, you were. You know, I think at the first, I think I was reading an interview somewhere that you did that they call you the first student of Berlin High School who didn't come from Germany, who didn't know how to read music or something like that, or whatever they call you?
Well, yeah, when I went for my interview there, I just
Yeah.
had to sit in front of 5 professors and just improvise on the piano for 20 minutes because I couldn't read music and I couldn't play anything from anybody else.
Yeah.
I still can't really. And they just all sat there, po-faced, you know, looking at me. And I finished and I looked round and they're all just sat there, not a smile or a murmur or a, you know, good or bad. And so I just walked out and thought, well, there's no way I'm going to get in here. You know, they don't like me, obviously. And a few days later, I got his letter to say that I'd been accepted and was the first person to be accepted that couldn't read music, which, because Mozart, people like that studied in Berlin and those places. And so the thought of them taking somebody that couldn't read music seemed pretty stupid. And actually it was pretty stupid because I'd studied piano as well, and my piano player, you know, he was a sort of ex-concert pianist and he just couldn't understand it. He used to look at me dumbfounded thinking, what the hell is this bloke doing here? He can't even read a word of music. And I'm sitting there going FACE, E, G, B, D, you know, he just couldn't understand it. And to be honest, I appreciate his feelings because what can I learn? You know, they're teaching a system that relies on you being able to communicate with notes on a page, and I didn't know anything about it. It was a language I didn't know. So, and my composition teacher, well, all he did was want to have tea and talk about England. So I never learned a thing there.
Well, but the thing is, you look back in your life, 50 records later, you're still around. And some of the people that knew how to read music, probably they did have a successful life like yourself. So it wouldn't have made a difference.
Well, you know, yeah, it's always been improvising for me ever since I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. And I did a concert for my brother, you know, as a sort of one-off, and got about 4 bars in and completely got in a muddle and went all over the place and embarrassed everybody, including myself. And I thought, at that point, as a teenager, I'm never going to try and play anybody else's song again. And I never have. And I've always just improvised. Everything I do is improvised. So everything you hear is just improvised. Everything I play just comes straight out of my head.
Got you.
And actually, that in itself is another way of another technique, like
that's right.
Notes on a piece of paper are. And of course, in Berlin, they didn't understand that at all.
Yeah, I got you. You have played with, you know, different people and different bands and a lot of different places. Is one particular concert that you look back and they say, man, that was the best concert that we ever did, or everything clicked, the light, the music, the show, the crowd? Is any one concert that you will never forget, or one of the, or perhaps the worst concert that you ever participated? Is anyone that,
you know, there isn't? And another funny thing is, very often you do concerts, you know, like I remember one with Steamhammer in Amsterdam in the there's a special club there. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's still going. And we played, you know, we were all very stoned and we played an amazing set. It was stomping and there was a good crowd there, and we finished and everybody was laying flat on the floor, you know, and I thought, they're going to go nuts. And not a ripple, not one clap, nothing. It was total silence. They were all completely so stoned, they were completely out. They were all sleeping on the floor. And also, you know, very often I felt done a really good concert, and you talk to people after and say, oh yeah, it's okay, you know, and you know, and then you do a real bummer and a real terrible concert, and you go out and people say, yeah, man, that was fantastic. And you're thinking, well, it was terrible. So you just don't know. And when you're doing so many concerts, you don't really, I don't remember them anyway. I don't remember. They all are woven in together really. I don't even remember where I've been. I used to talk to Edgar about that, actually, and he said, yeah, he got the same thing. And he said he used to take photos of everywhere, which I tried doing as well, and then looking at them afterwards to remind yourself of where you've been, and you can't remember, still can't remember where the photo was taken. So that didn't help either.
Yeah, because, you know, as a musician, you play in one sitting, then you need to wake up at 5 o'clock in the next day to take a bus, or, you know, take the train or the plane, and then you wake up another hotel, different city, another hotel.
Oh, it's continual. Yeah, it just runs into, they just run into each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hell of a kick, especially as it was with TD playing to thousands of people a night.
My God, man. Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes 10,000 people at some of those concerts.
Oh, yeah.
There was a concert in Spain where there was about 10,000 people there and another 10,000 outside that couldn't get in. And they were trying to bang the doors down, you know, and the police were out firing rubber bullets, you know. And I went out for my walk, and the soldiers came over and said, you've got to get back inside. You know, there's a fight out there. I thought, I couldn't believe it. What are they fighting over? You know, it's just a band playing a concert, you know, and the army's out firing rubber bullets.
Well, I hope you got paid good money playing in front of 10,000 people, you know?
Yeah, you know, it's
I know
funny.
there was
another
concert,
concert,
yeah.
another concert with TD, I remember, in Paris. And we went out, and usually when you come out on the stage, because all the lights are on you, it's just black. You can't see what's out there.
That's right, yeah.
And I remember walking out on the stage, and everybody lit their lighters just to light their joints probably, and to sort of, you know, a thing that they do. And there was just this mass of these little lights going right back into the distance. I thought, my God, I didn't realize there was that many people out there. That really freaked me. Not that I suffer from stage fright, but that was quite an event. I remember that.
My God, man. Wow. You get nervous playing in front of that many?
No, I've never really suffered from stage fright.
No?
Not since that time I messed up the I think it was Ave Maria I was playing or something on the saxophone. Yeah. Because I'm always improvising, so I can't do anything wrong really. So I guess it's, you know, not. I just enjoy it. I get this butterflies in my stomach before I walk on, which I quite enjoy. It's a nice feeling. It's a bit like getting pissed or something, you know. And I never suffer from it. Funnily enough, my brother has suffered terrible all his life, and I do feel sorry for people that do, because a lot of people do, and it is awful. You know, he's in and out of the toilet. You know, he's got over it now, but you know, years ago he had a terrible time, and he'd have to get so drunk before you got him on stage, he'd collapse on the keyboard. You know, because he was so pissed. Yeah, a lot. And I play with another guy from. They used to play with John Williams, Sky. Do you remember the band Sky?
Of course, yeah. Of course,
the keyboard player was a friend of mine, and we did a couple of little sort of gigs together, you know, and they got to hear about it at the radio station. They asked us to come and do an interview at the radio station. So I went up with Steve to the radio station, and he was sweating and getting nervous. And I said, "What's the matter, Steve? You know?" He said, "Oh, well, I just get really nervous when I have to do anything like this." I said, "You must be joking. I'm the one that should be nervous. You're the star, you know."
of course, sure.
Didn't worry me at all. But, you know, he was a wreck.
I think, Steve, you should, with all the stories that you have, I think you should write a book, man. If you run out of ideas in music, write a book. People
I have
will buy
written a
it.
book.
Huh?
I have written a book. I wrote an autobiography.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If you look on my website, you'll see it there.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, I've written an autobiography. It's short, but it's there, and it goes into some of the stuff that happened with TD and Steam Hammer, and you know, from my childhood up until when I finished writing. It was sort of like about 2000, I think. So it's there, and I've also released a couple of painting books. Also, they're on the website.
Well, maybe I gotta get see, if I visit you, I will buy a copy of the book and you, or, you know.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but definitely I'm very interested in getting all your music, man. So that it's another
Well,
excuse
if you
for
have any
me
problems,
to go and visit
you've got
you.
my website, my email address, TD78, which everybody knows,
Yeah.
TD78 at mail, not Gmail, just mail, TD78 at mail.com. You can write directly to me and I'll write directly back to you, and anything you want, I can send you. You know, I make copies of all the albums, all 50 albums. So.
Yeah. Wow. Great.
And all the books, you know,
Yeah,
so it's,
I got
everything's available.
Got you. Well, thank you very much, Steve, for your time. I'm quite sure we'll stay in touch. And if you need anything here from your friend in Washington D.C., or if you need me to send you anything from here, can be posted. And I hope when I'm in the UK again soon, I hope, and I will visit you.
Don't forget, you're very welcome. Just call me.
And we'll get together for dinner or beer or something, or wine or whatever.
Yeah, there's a great pub down my road, which is really good, old 14th century pub. And I've got a big house with loads of rooms, so you've got somewhere to stay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a great afternoon, man, and enjoy your weekend, man. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Great. Thank you, Claudio.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Talk soon. Bye.